Yo, what's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy, Kevin Forte, and we are taking a look today at your Chicago Blackhawks. The Blackhawks could be in store for a pretty interesting trade deadline. They look like they will be sellers at the deadline this year. A little bit of a changing of the guard in Chicago after almost 2 decades. Stan Bowman, no longer the general manager of the Hawks. And it may be the beginning of a new era, which may include some guys that we've known as the core of the Blackhawks leaving the organization. At this point, no one seems to be off the table for the Blackhawks. You look at their record right now, 16, 20, and 7 this season, a minus 35 goal differential. You look at where they sit in the standings, they are sitting right around the neighborhood of the Seattle Kraken and the Arizona Coyotes at the bottom of the Western Conference. You look at where they sit in terms of playoff positioning, it's probably even more depressing. Right now, they are 6 points out of a playoff spot. So, again, it's one of those things that 7 spots, 7 points out of a playoff spot. So, and again, Calgary has games in hand on you. With that said, 4 games in hand. So they seem to be kind of out of the running at this point. So with that, what are the names that are available? Well, a lot of them are pending unrestricted free agents, but some of them are just guys on the team. So the first one we're going to talk about is the goalie situation. Marc-Andre Fleury. So this is from Scott Powers. League sources suggest the Blackhawks could fetch, again, we're seeing this price tag for a lot of players right now. The Blackhawks could fetch a first-round pick for Marc-Andre Fleury. Kind of interesting because just this past summer, here in 2022, or in 2021, the Golden Knights traded him for nothing. Kind of interesting how that kind of flips around. We'll see how the market reacts to that news. Continuing with Marc-Andre Fleury, this is from Elliot Friedman. The Capitals are very interested and are looking into the possibility of adding Marc-Andre Fleury. Again, I don't think there's some real surprise here. Vitek Vanacek and Ilya Samsonov in Washington have been okay, but again, I think the Capitals, if they want to go on a deep run, they're trying to win the Stanley Cup this year. Again, that window seems to be closing as the years go by. Marc-Andre Fleury could help them in that direction, the 2021 Vezina Trophy winner. Now, continuing that along, though, Elliot Friedman, kind of came back on that a little bit. He said he's not certain that Marc-Andre Fleury would be comfortable going to the Capitals. I wonder if that will have some effect on Marc-Andre Fleury's value. Will they get a first-round pick? If there's no guarantee he goes to the team that he's traded to, that could also be on the table. Again, he just picked up his family and moved from Vegas to Chicago. Would they want to do that again as a rental situation here at the deadline? If Marc-Andre Fleury wants to go cup chasing, that's probably some internal discussion that is going to need to be had for him. So this is from the Daily Face-Off Show from Samantha Pell on the Capitals, what they could do at the deadline. The first one is definitely a goalie. I think the Washington Capitals are in on Marc-Andre Fleury. Every team should be at this point. Capitals definitely need a goalie. 50%. We see a new one in net in Washington come playoff time. So you flip a coin and 1 or 2. There's a 50% chance that there will be a new goalie in Washington. I think the Capitals are really going to be, I have to do a whole video on the Capitals goalie situation because there are goalies available. Not really anything great, which is probably good news for the Blackhawks because I would say Fleury is probably the best goalie on the market. Some other goalies that could be had are Braden Holtby and Hudobin in Dallas. Maybe Semyon Varlamov from the New York Islanders. He actually has ties to the Capitals organization. He was drafted there and played a couple years in Washington. So if you want to look at legitimate teams, I think those are some of the options that will be there for the Capitals. Now kind of moving into a different realm here, looking at defensemen. The Blackhawks are believed to have informed teams that their for sale sign is up. Brandon Hagel, Dominic Kubalik, Dylan Strome, Calvin DeHaan, Connor Murphy, Eric Gustafson, and Marc-Andre Fleury are all available. Teams already interested in DeHaan include the Florida Panthers, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Edmonton Oilers, the Minnesota Wild, and the New York Rangers. And this was from the fourth period, which is the source of this little thing here. I think that's not too, again, it's not anything really new for the Blackhawks, but Haan's name seems to be growing some tension. Now, if you maybe don't want to give up a first-round pick for a defenseman, again, this is where some of those teams may lose that leverage of, oh, we want a first-round pick for every guy. Because Haan could probably be had for a second or third round pick and could be a really serviceable fourth or fifth defenseman in your lineup just to add some depth behind your core guys. He's a good skater. He can move the puck around. And again, I've seen him for many years with the New York Islanders. I really have nothing bad to say about him. And maybe I have some bias because he flipped the puck to me in New Jersey during warm-ups a couple years back. So I do still have that little bit of a bias toward him. But again, like I said, a great guy overall and a really serviceable defenseman if he's put in the right spot. If he's in those top two pairs, you're kind of running some risk there. He's a really good third pairing defenseman on a team that's trying to win a Stanley Cup. That's really where he fits the best. So with that said, we had a report from Frank Saravelli, kind of continuing with this Blackhawks front, but this is where things get a little bit more juicy and we start to dig into the steak a little bit. The Blackhawks' only untouchables are Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews, and Seth Jones. Now, again, I just did this a couple of videos ago with the Vancouver Canucks, where they mentioned the only untouchables were Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes, and Thatcher Demko. Kind of similar here for the Blackhawks, because there's names here that aren't mentioned as untouchables that you may be wondering. Alex Debrincat is technically available, and we'll kind of continue with that here in a second. So that's something we have to get to now. So this is from Elliot Friedman. Chicago may have been asked about moving Kane earlier this season, but they don't want to. And I think with all the controversy around Patrick Kane and his history with the Blackhawks, I think he will be forever a Chicago Blackhawk. Unless he's dealt at the deadline as a rental at the end of his contract, I think in 2 years, in 2024 it would be. Other than that, he's going to be a member of the Blackhawks for life. I just don't see it really happening. But I never would have said Claude Giroux would leave Philly, and that seems like it's going to be on the table. So, again, take it with a grain of salt, but as of right now, he is considered an untouchable. Now, going back to a guy that we mentioned here just a few minutes ago, from Mark Lazarus, he said that Dylan Strome would probably cost a third or fourth round pick in a trade. And I think that makes sense. Dylan Strome, again, a former top 5 draft pick in his 2016 draft class. I think most would consider him a bust. He's been on the trade block pretty much all season. The Blackhawks have tried to move him, and they really haven't gotten much traction. I think they're starting to lower their possibility of getting things done with him. I could see Dylan Strome being a 3 o'clock addition to somebody on deadline day. If they miss out on a guy like JT Miller or one of those big centermen or Giroux or one of those guys, they want to add some depth, I think Dylan Strome could be a late addition to a cup contender for a 4th or 5th round pick, if I'm going to be honest. I think a third is asking for a lot, considering he's been available all season and nobody's taken a waiver on him. I think that price is going to continue to go down as we get closer and closer and closer to the deadline. And this is the big part of the steak that we have to get to, the big meaty part. And that is Elliot Friedman reporting that if someone steps up and makes a monster offer for Alex Debrincat, he could be traded. Now, I'm not saying Alex Debrincat's going to get traded. And this is something that realistically kind of reminds me of Jacob Chikrin. This is more than likely a deal we see get done over the summer closer to the draft. And the reason I say that is the amount of money that would be involved. Alex Debrincat's making a pretty good change of money. And 2, chances are if you're looking at a team that wants to add him, you're not going to find that necessarily from the big boys, the big teams. Because, truthfully, I don't see those teams making that kind of move. And I'm saying this because I could see a team like the Flyers, or the Canadiens, or the Blue Jackets or somebody that's not a playoff team this year making that move, which would mean, because they're trying to add to their core. That's a core piece to your team. I don't see a cup contender looking to do that at the deadline necessarily. And they're not going to want to give up assets, especially a team that's not doing well. They're not going to want to give up, the Sabres or the Flyers or one of those teams. They're not giving up their first round pick this year, right? Or prospects. They're trying to acquire those things this year, right? So that's where I don't see a Debrincat trade working right now. But I think this will be another topic we'll be talking about throughout the rest of this season into the summer. So that's kind of the latest on that. Like we said, we already talked about this report from David Pagnotta. The Panthers, Leafs, Oilers, Wild, and Rangers have been linked to defenseman Calvin Haan. And that's it on the front for the Chicago Blackhawks. I think the Blackhawks, it's pretty evident. A couple of guys will be getting moved before the deadline. The big ones being really Marc-Andre Fleury, Calvin Haan, Dylan Strome, and then a couple of other guys. I think Dominic Kubalik could be a really nice addition for somebody. I'm surprised that they're not trying to work on him coming back. But I think they just want a clean slate in Chicago, and I think they want to keep their main guys, their big defenseman Seth Jones, and obviously their two core guys in Taves and Kane, and everybody else, they want to start over. And I think that's kind of interesting. But guys, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Do you see an Alex Debrincat trade? And if so, when? Is that a trade deadline move, or is that something we'll see during the summer, or maybe even next trade deadline? Let me know down below. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.